Next on the running order, we come to Roger Silverman, and Roger is here from the campaign for a Mass Workers' Party, and I see from some of the Zoom names that we have some other representatives of the CMWP here also. Thank you very much indeed for coming. So, Roger, for 15 minutes or so, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, comrade. First of all, I'd like to say thank you very much to Becky for that introduction, and thanks to the GreenLeft for the invitation. We're meeting at a significant moment in Britain's political history. When we launched our campaign, the Campaign for a Mass Workers' Party last year, we were just a handful of isolated socialists. But today, at the initiative of a newly revived wave of activists, the left has finally got its act together, and it's on the verge of the foundation of a new mass left party. And I would say that we're very grateful for the opportunity to participate in this discussion, and we have no hesitation in giving due credit to the Greens for their tireless campaigning and their early warnings of a climate crisis that is now raging all around us. The Green vote has risen steadily to nearly, I think, 2 million at the last general election. And this is a cause for congratulation. It's evidence of a welcome growth in awareness of the ecological catastrophe now not just looming ahead, but already wreaking havoc all around us. But as socialists, we have a special angle on this question. Environmental degradation is not the only and not necessarily even the most immediate threat to human life. It's just one morbid symptom of a deadly cancer that is simultaneously eating into all the vital organs of civilization. We're currently tracing the steps, 1 foot at a time, of a descent into hell. For nearly 2 decades, society has been plunged into a long economic malaise, and with just brief and minor respites, sinking into terminal decay. The world is teetering on the brink of a slump as deep as the Great Depression of the 1930s. And just as in the 1930s, in what is almost an uncanny reenactment, its inevitable consequence is an ugly rash of xenophobia, racism, and war. In the 1930s, it was the Spanish Civil War, the Italian invasion of Ethiopia, and the Japanese invasion of China. Today, a major war of attrition in Europe is already in its 3rd year, conducted by one side as a clandestine proxy war, and by the other, a nuclear superpower, as a full-scale invasion. In the Middle East, genocide, mass extermination, and a series of explosive wars. In the Indian subcontinent, a narrowly and only precariously averted war between 2 neighbouring nuclear powers. That's before we mention raging civil wars in Sudan, Yemen, the Congo, etc. This deep malaise is also reflected in capitalism's political system. The far right are in government, from the USA to Russia to India and throughout Europe, from Sweden, formerly the social democratic Mecca for half a century, from Italy, which used to have the strongest communist party outside of the Stalinist bloc, to most of the countries of the continent, soon to be followed probably by France, Germany, Spain, and, we have a last warning, Britain too. And what in the 1930s was the inevitable outcome of the deepening economic slump? The erection of tariffs, an escalating trade war, the rise to power of xenophobic demagogues, the spreading cancer of racism and ultranationalism, world war. It was an outcome for which today all the governments around the world, from the USA and China to Europe and Britain, are actively and explicitly preparing now, pouring their money into rebuilding their nuclear arsenals in a suicidal and devastating arms race. Now, the Greens are, as I said, to be congratulated on having sounded the alarm on the environmental crisis. But that is not, in our opinion, the root cause of society's ills. It's only one of its many deadly and poisonous symptoms. And tinkering with the symptoms without tackling the disease is a deadly mistake, one with fatal consequences. The working class desperately needs an independent voice of its own, a world party. It's for the working class to rebuild society from the foundations upwards,
Probably.
to seize hold of the world's resources into its own hands and reshape the future. In the absence of a left challenge, the Greens became a default alternative. But according to our opinion, there is a crying need for a socialist voice. In its absence, improvised pop-up parties are appearing periodically, many of them revolving around charismatic personalities. But a mass working class party won't be built by self-appointed leaders with pre-packaged policies in search of a rank and file. That's fine for right-wing parties. All they need is a couple of billionaires and a media conglomerate. But it's no way to establish a party of the 99%. Now, when we come to the Greens, I hope comrades won't be offended if I say it's a little bit like a quack doctor seeking to treat the symptoms without tackling the underlying malady. And whenever entrusted with real estate power, the chance to prove their credentials, with the very best of intentions, the Greens have let their supporters down. In Germany, they capitulated on their commitments against a reliance on coal and against an arms race and war preparations. I'm not saying that's through cowardice or corruption, not at all, but it's the inevitable perverse consequence of trying to tackle the symptoms and not the disease. And when we come to Britain, again, we don't feel put out by my making this point, but you can understand why we question what confidence we could have in an alliance with the Greens. They stood against Liane Mohammed, a left Labour candidate in Ilford North, letting Wes Street retain his seat. They stood a candidate against Jeremy Corbyn in 2017 and again in 2019 and even in 2024 when he was standing as an independent candidate in defiance of Starmer. And today too, the Green Party insists on fighting every constituency. We welcome the emergence of a left challenge to the Green establishment, but we recognise the left Greens are really allies in our common struggle. But we can be forgiven also for some doubt and some mixed feelings. For instance, Zach Polanski stood as a local council candidate for the Lib Dems while they were still in coalition and collaborating in austerity politics with the Tories. He joined the Greens in 2017 at the height of the Corbyn surge. As a London Assembly member, what is he doing to address the crisis of 366,000 households on council waiting lists? And after the Grenfell horror, what is he doing as chair of the London Assembly Fire Committee to reverse austerity cuts in the fire service or to act on the thousands of homes still with unsafe cladding? What does he say about the £51 million cuts made by Bristol City Council, which has a Green Party council leader? Let me repeat again, we don't question the Greens' sincerity and commitment, but trying to tackle one manifestation of the disease without a comprehensive overall plan to overthrow capitalist rule and operate a socialist plan, the Greens will remain helpless and impotent. So, if I can finish by asking, what are the prospects for the creation of a new mass left party? Until recently, of course, all we had heard from the mainstream left were Delphic hints of a coming pronouncement to be made sometime in the future. But today we can be confident we really are about to witness the dawn of a new party, and it's not a day too soon. Because all around the world, as I said before, the tide of the far right is surging, and we could soon see the plague spread still further, including to Britain, where every day of further delay brings us hurtling closer towards the disaster of a reform government. In last year's election, how was it that Labour won? It had the support of just 20% of registered voters. Even among the less than 60% who voted, by the way, the lowest turnout, I think, for decades, Labour and the Tories together got only 57.4% of the vote, the lowest in over a century. Labour's vote actually dropped from 12.9 million in 2017 and 10.3 million in 2019, both under Corbyn, to 9.7 million in 2024 under Starmer. Labour only won an overwhelming majority of seats because in 2019 the Tories had, in effect, an electoral pact with Farage's Brexit party, giving them 14 million votes. This time, we have to say, the so-called Labour landslide, the total vote for the Tories plus Reform still exceeded Labour's by 1.2 million. The most significant features of the general election are the record low turnout, the high vote for none of the above candidates, and that means not just Reform but also the Lib Dems, Corbyn, Independents, near misses for left candidates in other constituencies, and of course the Greens, who, congratulations to them, did win 4 seats and nearly 2 million votes. But also, most ominously, the 4 million votes for the racist far-right party Reform. And the main thing that came out of the election is it's the end of traditional Tory rule. But despite the hollow parliamentary victory, it's the end of Labour too. Those who decry the evils of the two-party system are now way out of date because both the traditional two parties are on the verge of being wiped out. It's the end of centuries of traditional Tory rule, and it's also the end of Labour. There's a huge gap, therefore, in British politics, and we need a mass left alternative. And the prospects are overwhelmingly positive. Because where's the basis for such a party? In the 500,000 who surged to join Labour when Corbyn, to his own surprise, won the leadership. From the near 13 million votes won in the 2017 election under Corbyn's leadership, which, apart from Scotland, was Labour's best result for decades. In Labour's second best vote this century, yes, in 2019, which was written off as a disaster, but it was still, as I say, the second best result, far better than Starmer got this time round, winning still 10.3 million votes. Under Corbyn, Labour won its 2 successive highest votes this century. And it's out of despair for the lack of an alternative, and due, we have to say, to fatal hesitation on the left, that perilously Farage scooped up those 4 million votes. Another consequence, of course, was the nearly 2 million who opted by default to vote Green. And Corbyn's spectacular victory as an independent candidate in Islington North was yet another pointer to the potential success of a new mass left party. So I'd finish by saying this. We do desperately need a voice, a mass political party that stands not for the billionaire parasites, but for the 99%. In its absence, a number of maverick formations have sprung up. And despite its creditable impact, we have to say that we don't believe that the Greens will substantially grow. And why? Because for all its good intentions and its good, partially very appropriate programme, it does lack a solid working class base. With the new Left Party still in its embryonic form, within days, tens of thousands have signed up. Actually, the potential membership of the New Left Party already outnumbers the membership of the Green Party. Why do we have confidence in its potential? Because it has roots in the traditions of the working class. The old industrial labour base may have gone, but the working class is as strong as ever. In 1983, there was an opinion poll before the destruction of industry, and 60% of the population declared themselves as working class. What's the figure today, the corresponding figure? It's still 60%. Look around you. In the last couple of years, we've had a
One minute, please, Roger.
Sorry, just finishing the last 2 minutes, please, if you don't mind. In the last couple of years, we've had a rise in strikes, trade union militancy, railway workers, nurses, doctors, teachers, lawyers, and none of these are affiliated to the Labour Party. Sooner or later, they'll come to realise, as did the trade unionists 125 years ago, that they too need a political voice. I don't believe they'll turn to Starmer's Labour Party. I don't believe they'll turn to the Greens. And when we talk about the other sections of the working class, organised in Labour-affiliated unions, why would they stay with a party that is representing their enemy class? Why they'll be saying, why are we paying our hard-earned wages, our precious affiliation fees to this anti-union government? I don't believe they'll flock to the Greens. I think they will affiliate to a new party. So finally, the scientists say nature abhors a vacuum. Politics too abhors a vacuum. A new party of the left is being created because millions of people are desperately crying out for it. No force on earth could hold back the tide. And you Green campaigners have shown vision and courage. You've inspired many young people, and we would welcome the opportunity to work alongside you. If you're willing to align with the new Left Party, I'm sure it would be happy to consider adjustments and alliances in appropriate constituencies. But above all, we would hope that you would think seriously about breaking decisively and joining the central struggle of our epoch, the fight for a new world. We wouldn't reject an electoral agreement with left Greens in certain constituencies where the demographics justify it, but now at last, the vacuum is at last being filled. We have at least a fighting chance to rally behind a full-blooded socialist alternative, and we would urge you to consider making the decisive break and joining forces with us to build a mass socialist party. Thank you very much for listening to me, comrades, and I'm sorry if I went on a little long.
Not at all. Thank you, Roger, and all credit to you, and much gratitude for pulling no punches and presenting us with a challenging picture, but in a very measured and polite way. And I'm sure that there will be lots of people here who are not in agreement with your assessment and who will wish to talk about it. But the same obligation is placed on them as you have just fulfilled, and that's the obligation to keep it polite and measured. So happy to have discussion about that, but urge everyone to keep it